Hi, everyone. I'm Gwen Callahan, one of the co-directors of the HP Lovecraft Film Festival and CthulhuCon, and I am here for the Q&A for Shorts Block 2, and I am joined by several filmmakers today, Anatasha and Jacob from Death Parts Us, Joe Loftus joining us from Ireland with his film Still Up There, Rasmus Safarnia from Denmark and his film Irukax, and Jose Luis Rodriguez and his film The Dogs. Welcome, everyone. Hi.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
So I'm going to start with Anatasha, Jacob. So your film, black and white, silent, kind of done in an old silent film era style with completely practical effects. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us a little bit about why you decided to do this style of film, and then how you kind of managed to do all the practical effects?
Well, originally it was interesting. We worked with our DP Sam Ott on a few other projects, and he was like, I just have all this 16 millimeter film, and this was during COVID lockdown. We were just talking over Zoom, and he's like, I kind of want to do something nostalgic. And he planted that little seed, and then on a road trip we were kind of talking, and we'd been playing a lot of Mansions of Madness, and I was reading a lot of HP Lovecraft, so it was just on my mind. And between those two things, we decided to use the 16 millimeter as an excuse to do something that felt period. And I'm also a very dialogue heavy writer, and I wanted to make a silent film because I thought it would be good for me.
And we shot some in black and white, but some of it's in color. So there's a cosmic transitional switch between color and black and white. And part of it was that he was like, oh, I have this Bolex camera that can crank for 26 seconds. So it's only 26-second takes. And so everything has to be within that. And the viewfinder was so tiny on it that we couldn't actually see what we had made yet until we sent it off to be developed. So we kind of just had to assume we had a short film in the can as we went.
Yeah. And as far as the practical effects goes, we used a liquid light show, and also just put black duve all over our living room, and decided to use lights as the way to kind of connect the character to the cosmos instead of using CGI or anything. I was really inspired by David Lynch's short films and just trying to use the practical effects in camera and stuff. So
Cool. So you're shooting kind of almost blind, because you can kind of see where your viewfinder is, but you can't see really what you're getting. Did you have a lot of footage that you weren't able to use, or did most of it come out okay?
Coincidentally, I actually everything looks great that as intended for the most part, except we had one day where we went out to a national forest. We shot it all in Utah, and it's an hour and a half drive one way. And we went all the way out there, and the Bolex camera has all of the lenses on the front, so you rotate. So if you don't remove the lens caps on all of the lenses for the wide, you can see the lens cap in the shot.
Yeah, it looks like this, in the corner.
Yeah, there's a little cover. So the shots still look good, but our DP, as we were packing up, goes, oh my God, I totally spaced and left the lens cap on for all of the wide shots. And luckily we had already scheduled in an extra day of shooting just in case. And so we had to drive all the way back out to the national forest the next day just to get the wides. So in terms of actual setup, when it came to the quality of the picture, everything was perfect. Our DP did a great job. And even though with the Bolex viewfinder, it's really scratched and you can't tell, all of it turned out perfect, except we did have to reshoot because we couldn't tell looking through the viewfinder that the lens caps were on. He didn't realize until we were packing up. Oh my gosh, I left the lens cap on.
Oh man. Yeah, in terms of disastrous little slip ups, that sounds like it wasn't too bad.
No, it wasn't too bad. We were lucky that the schedule was the way that it was. But I was super happy with how it turned out. When we got the footage back, I felt like it was more beautiful than I had anticipated, and I was so happy with it.
Even with the lens cap on, we were like, can we use this footage? Like, we were still debating because it still looked really good. So both shots came out well.
Nice. That's amazing. I love the use of the 16 millimeter film, and it seems like there's a resurgence of people like using 8 millimeter and 16 millimeter to shoot some of their short films now, and it's really interesting because it gives it a different kind of texture and quality than just using filters. I've seen filters really well done, but there is something about using that physical media that's really cool.
Yeah, all of the film grain on it is just from the chemical bath from processing. And the thing about making this piece compared to shooting on digital is that it's a completely different approach to filmmaking. Everything about the way you make it and how you shoot it is completely different than with digital. And we wanted that challenge when we made this.
Wow. Fun. So I'm going to move over to Joe, who also did a different style of short film with animation. And your film Still Up There is very much cosmic horror, but very much kind of using the frame to reveal the story as it kind of pulls out and pulls out and pulls out until we get the whole picture. So it's an interesting parallel between the narrative that's happening in the inner monologue from the character versus and with the visual reveal that's happening as well. Are you a Lovecraft fan? I should ask all of you guys this because it's so cosmic horror.
Oh yeah. This film originally started off as a comic, and it was originally meant to be like an anthology comic. Like it came from it was like in 2018 was I was reading everything Lovecraft, and it was just complete immersion in that world with a little bit of like the Stephen King stories that were influenced by Lovecraft as well. It was trying to get that complete like that. This is such a specific feeling that's obviously fairly across that kind of like Lovecraftian like weird, nearly analytical, like looking at absolute insane, desperately trying to catalog it in like scientific terms, but it's just I don't know, that's kind of what I was trying to get with it.
Nice. The music is like the soundtrack and the voiceover and everything come together to give you this really haunting feeling. Does that particular song that the woman is singing have any special significance for you?
It does. It's something I've kind of that has come across you. Well, yeah, at least one other short film. So to me, it's kind of like I love the idea of say really pleasant, like a lullaby song being used in this context of like I very much want to get that feeling that what's happening, not to spoil the film, I suppose, but like that the character is actually being cared for, but in a really insane sort of a way. So it is shown to, and like to me, that song was like it's so like such a nice, lovely song. It's something you would sing to somebody, like, but in this horrible circumstance, it's like it just works so well to do that kind of opposite in a horrible situation to have. You are fine.
So for the comic book, did you do the illustrations as well as writing it, or did someone else do is there another artist that you worked with?
No, not on the comic. And I think that kind of, for me, that the comic was all me, but it was the story really that stuck with me. So on this film, I worked with a new art director to completely expand the style. Because when I look back at the comic, I was like, it's too kind of cartoony. So it's like expanding the style into, like, obviously I still want it. I work primarily in animation, so, but I wanted to make it more real, more realistic. So it was like working with Sarah Walsh, who's the art director on this piece, to really bring it into that like feeling of actual deep space and like more depth and less, I don't know, less graphic, I suppose, than the comics. So.
Nice. Is this your first animated film, or have you done other films animated like this?
Yeah, this would be, oh God, I can't think, what's that, my fifth. Yeah, a lot of animated films. I've been working on shorts now for a good while. So they're kind of something I'm working away on the background, always on new project.
Can you tell me a little bit about the sort of origination of this particular story?
I guess it really did come from that. It's that awakening for me, because I think it was in 2016, 2017 that I first discovered Lovecraft stories. So I got an anthology when I was in Paris, and there was just this novelty of like, you know, where I'd gotten it and bringing it home, reading it on the plane, all this stuff, and I was like, oh my God, this is like best thing ever. It's so weird. So it was like complete, and then from there reading every possible Lovecraft story that I could get my hands on, and then like trying to search for more and more and more, and all while that was happening, it just kept forming like my own ideas in the background. And it's where this kind of concept of a anthology series came from, where it's like something, and I want to very much in the stories, like I like instill up there, like you never know what actually happened to make it, like to get him into space or anything like that. And very much the idea behind the anthology was that there was this central event that has happened that's kind of like, you've seen The Mist, like something has happened somewhere, but we never get the reason why, but this fundamental reality shift has happened. So it's like, to me, that was like, it's so interesting to get that echo and give you a set point after like some catastrophic event that you're just bunking a character in it, but also it's still up there. It's very much, you're not even getting the character's perspective up to that point. You're very much just dropping in his loop. So yeah, that I just found that idea so interesting. That idea of like clashing with the absolute cosmic smallness of genre, physicality. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, and it's a sort of a reflection of how astronomers and physicists are able to tell that something happened like way in deep space, because you can't see the thing, but you can see the effects of the thing. So it's interesting that you decide to kind of show the effects of the thing, but on a very like minute scale, like one person versus like what everything that's happening in the whole world. And I think it makes it even more scary that way.
Yeah, I think it's like any kind of horror, even though this does actually happen in the film. It's like when you see the monster, like you're like, ah, it's not scary anymore. I can put a name on it. But if you can never really, I don't know, yeah, it's just, yeah, ethereal, spooky stuff, you know?
So you mentioned The Mist and Stephen King, and he has a short story called I Am the Doorway. Was that in any way an influence on this story?
Oh my God, I have read that, but it's so many years since it, how did that one go again?
That one, like the person in space like develops
oh my
like,
God, yes, the hand.
and things and eyes and like things out through him.
Of course, yeah. No. That was definitely from the same kind of period where it was just, yeah, because it, like in that the astronaut comes back like infected. Very much. Oh yeah. No, that definitely was an effect at the time. It's so like, yeah, it's pretty much, yeah, pretty much.
So maybe
it's the
totally
same idea.
maybe not really conscious influence, but maybe some subconscious kind of.
That's the real.
Well,
Got the name of it.
yeah, I'm the Doorway. I think we had an adaptation. We had an adaptation of that a few years back, and it was pretty interesting. Very psychedelic and sort of mix of live action and animation. It's probably floating out around the internet somewhere. I bet you could find it if you look for it.
We'll be searching.
I'm going to come down to Rasmus and let's talk about earhacks. So this is an interesting one because sometimes when one of our senses is impaired, people see it as a handicap, but in this case, the main character, it's a benefit for her. When you were creating, is this a story that you wrote or is it adapted from something?
No, it was a story that I wrote.
And was that something that you wanted to kind of highlight in terms of the difference between like people with all of their senses being just absolutely driven insane versus somebody who can't see the thing that's making everyone insane being the only one who can kind of, who's maybe able to survive this catastrophe?
Well, I think it kind of like became that as I started writing the story, because originally I just had this idea in my head, like, okay, I want to make like a Lovecraftian film. How do you make something that's Lovecraftian in a visual medium? And I thought, okay, someone has seen something in a telescope. Why doesn't the other character just look in the telescope and like confirm if it's true or not? Like that was the main thing with the story. So I thought, okay, I'll make her blind. And then a lot of things kind of sprouted from that. Like, okay, you can use that like as a dramatic device and like kind of highlight the difference between what the audience sees and what she sees, but also like what like sometimes we don't show what's right in front of her, to like kind of have the like make the audience relate to this feeling of blindness. And I also remember that in a pretty early draft of the script, the dad actually kind of thinks she's like a chosen one in this new world because she can't see the god. And I kind of played around with that idea, but it got a little, I guess, too much, a little too over explaining. So that was cut out eventually. But it actually just kind of started like a plot point to explain why she doesn't look in the telescope. But I think it kind of expanded to something more.
It gives it it gives it kind of a different depth of and layers of meaning that I guess every audience member will bring something to the interpretation of it. But it also made me think a little bit about like Bird Box from Josh Miller.
Yes, it's funny because I didn't, when I started writing this story, I didn't even know about Bird Box. And then I learned about Bird Box and I was like, please don't have me just like accidentally copy this film. And I only think I watched Bird Box, I think after we had shot it or something. And I was kind of relieved that it, in my opinion, was pretty different from this one, but I was a little scared that it was going to be the same thing.
It's interesting to us how that happens too, because sometimes almost every year we get like a grouping of films that they're not the same film, but they're the same theme, like they're exploring the same themes or have some kind of element that's the same, and it happens every year. It's really interesting to us how the sort of collective conscious manifests itself in film and art. Some of that seems like you were saying how you kind of tailored some of the camera work and what we see and what the main character sees to help kind of convey that feeling of being in her shoes and being blind. And I was going to comment that some of the cinematography is really interesting because it does give you that feeling of like being a little closed in, or just like you want to be like, tell the camera to turn this way so I can see what's happening. And you realize that, well, the character can't see, so that's very interesting. But then at the end, with the ending shot, can you talk a little bit about that without it's okay, I think, to spoil, because people watching this should have already seen the film, and so they know what's happening.
Yes, actually, it's interesting because the ending, it there was a lot of discussions back and forth about how much we wanted to show. Like, should you see? Like, we definitely had, like, I think you shouldn't see Irocax actually, because that would kind of ruin the vibe. But should it just be like the whole scene is just one close up of the main character's face, and you don't really know what's going on around her? Should it just be like cut to black as soon as she's outside, and you just hear the sounds but don't see anything? We kind of like settled on, okay, we want to see a little bit of what's going on around her, but it's mostly audio, because you don't see a lot. You see a couple people in this small town, and you see like the edge of the sky where it's kind of red and kind of weird looking, but we didn't want to do any more than that.
Mhm. I think that was a good choice, because even though you only see a few people, you get the idea that it's like everybody there. I think because of the sound design bringing that element in. And when you said that, I was like, weren't there more? I kind of, in my memory, there was more people in that scene, but you're right. Like, I think it's the people were created by the sound design instead of the visual, which is really well done.
Thank you.
But it's so classic. A lot of our judges comment on the story that, like, this is like classic Lovecraftian cosmic horror. It's really great. The When I was saying, like, some of the films this year kind of play on the same theme. So there's another film in a different, I think it's in a different block. It's called Unknown, from Uruguay, and it's kind of a similar theme, where a child, but adult child, of an aging parent who is maybe losing their faculties, or like having some dementia. They go home to take care of them, and like weird stuff happens. Is that something that you were thinking of exploring as well, like this idea of aging and the difference between like younger people's perception of the world and like older people's ability to perceive and interpret different things about the world?
Mm, uh, Definitely. I think like the main thing I kind of set out to explore was kind of like this relationship between order and chaos, but it is in the context of this, like a child and her father uh thing, and it was kind of inspired by, maybe some personal experiences where it was like, okay, maybe my parents don't always know what to do, or something like that. uh I think that's kind of an interesting concept that like kind of cuts into weirdly into the Lovecraftian experience, is like parents might be your idea of stability. So when that kind of gets rocked, that's scary, and that's kind of a good jumping off point for horror.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. Interesting. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'm gonna jump over to Jose Luis Rodriguez and your film The Dogs, which is an adaptation of The Hounds of Tindalos. I don't know that everyone is necessarily familiar with the story, but you've presented a lot of the high points in your film. What inspired you to adapt this particular story?
Well, since a child, I have read a lot of Lovecraft books, and that particular one, like a short story, because it's really short, I think is the one that I like the most. So when the COVID pandemic started, we stopped working, and that was the time I started like thinking about the stories, and it became a script, and a pretty long script. I needed to short it but I liked it a lot. And the monster is, I think that what I like the most it is this idea of a monster that lives like between dimensions, and
Mhm.
I think it's kind of scary. And I try to approach that theme in the short because it's the more you know, is the more you are close to that danger and a
Mhm.
strange and unknown danger. No? And ultimately it's like well, the monster will catch everyone who messes on that things.
Neat. The idea of like a monster that travels in between dimensions, it, like struck me like that's exactly how like kids are with their the monster in the closet, the monster under the bed. It's like the thing that you can't see except for under very specific conditions.
Yeah.
AKA like as soon as you have to go to bed or when it gets dark. So with the hounds in this adaptation, it is a very short story, but I feel like there's a lot in the story, and it's very hard to put on film. I think the creatures themselves. So it's interesting that the what am I trying to say? The way you portrayed the hounds themselves, like we got to see the hounds. Can you talk a little bit about the process of the effects and the design of the hounds or the dogs?
Yeah, well, I work with a friend that is a designer, and we're both fans of Evangelion, and I really like the strange designs for the angels, and I wanted to have kind of that. And also, it was pretty sad because starting when I started the short, I wanted it to do it with practical effects, but I got a budget and it was like, well, CGI. Uh, so we designed the monster. We had some sketches, and then we found out a CGI designer. So it was difficult because we didn't have a lot of budget to make it. So it was like a year and a half process.
Wow.
The final renders happened on a Bitcoin mining PC or something like that. Because we didn't have any more money. So there were some difficulties because of that. Making CGI can be very costly, and we couldn't have so much changes or so many changes. So it was like once I have it, it's like we can do it again because of time also. And but I really liked it, and I only had a a bit of post-production insights while shooting, so they could make this pairing from what we were shooting to insert the duck.
Mhm. Interesting. So we talk about sometimes with Lovecraft stories and you know, other of his contemporary writers that like not a lot of action happens in the story, and so sometimes when you adapt to film, you kind of have to create some movement for the characters for them to do something. And can you talk a little bit about that, adapting this story to your film where like much more happens in the film versus you know exactly what happens in the story?
Yeah, well, the original story, is like more like a drug use.
Mhm.
But here I wanted to have a like a strange artifact that it was these lenses, and also the idea of happening everything between the two characters and inside like a room. I wanted what you were saying. I wanted to have a like more of this happening. So I tried to get a bit of inspiration from some some films like from Sam Raimi's or that kind of that kind of films where you have strange entities ultimately well, giving a bit of hell to to every character in the movie. So once they see this monster, the dog, the Hound of Tyndalos, um, I try to get the most to this sense of persecution that they can't avoid. So one of them goes away, and they have this call by phone, and I wanted to have a bit of madness on that. There are some senseless speech in there that you won't understand. Um, but that way it was a bit difficult because since everything happened on the pandemic, we didn't have rehearsals. We only had some calls, and it were like bad quality. And having that on the film was a bit of a challenge because we really couldn't work well on that side. And yeah, the story was a bit extensive compared to the original story. I think the original script was like 25 pages long, and I needed to short it.
Sorry, I muted myself because our neighbors decided to mow their lawn right now. I don't know if you guys can hear that, but it sounds very loud to me. So yeah, fantastic. I love the variety of films that you guys all put out. They're each of them very different in style and theme and adaptation, and it's just fantastic. One of the things we love so much about this film festival is that it is kind of a small genre, like a narrow focus on cosmic horror and Lovecraftian things, but we still get so much variety of styles and genres and like just different interpretations. And it's just fantastic. So thank you so much for making these films. Before we go, I wanted to ask each of you if there's anything that you wanted to say about your film that I didn't ask you, and also to let our audience know where they can find you on the internet, if you've got a website with other videos available, or just on your social media where they can find you. Go, and I'm going to start with Jose. Go ahead and let us know.
Well, I'm since a childhood fan of Lovecraft and this cosmic horror, I for me in particular, I think is like the best kind of horror. It has become so mainstream that I really think that cosmic horror is like something else. It maybe is not that scare jumps thing, but the ambient that you get sometimes while reading the books or while watching a movie, I think is the best. And they are strange entities that ultimately live among us. And the Earth has a thousand millennia story in this universe. So I think that these stories are the best, and I really loved doing the film. And well, if you want to watch another short, there's I have my Instagram, Catherine Jose, and thanks a lot.
And we'll put links in the notes, so if people can't decipher everything, we can put the links in the notes. Rasmus, how about you? Where can we find you on the internet? And is there anything else that you wanted to give us insight about your film that you didn't get to talk about already?
Not too much. I guess in terms of the film, I'd just say I was really positively surprised with the whole cruise and the actors' work. I think everybody put their all into it, and everybody did like work that I couldn't I didn't dare to imagine them doing it as well as they did. So it was real nice to see everybody so dedicated to the project. But yes, I do a couple other things even weirder than Eurocax. And I guess the best place to find me is probably on my Instagram, which is just my last name, Safanya, but with an X instead of an S. But I guess there'll be a link. But I have a link tree there where you can see some of my project and such.
Okay. And Joe, how about you?
Hey, yeah, no, I don't think I have anything mad extra to add. Just thanks very much for having the film at the festival, and thanks to everyone for watching it. Hopefully, it's suitably weird experience for everyone, and that you enjoy it. But yeah, I've had a few other films as well. Some horror, some kind of anime weird stuff. Yeah. Like you can find me on joelloftus.art. So yeah, very good.
Thank you. Anatasha and Jacob.
Yeah, I actually wanted to tell you, Gwen, that he reminded me that when we were doing film festivals for one of our other shorts, we kind of came across the H.P. Lovecraft and Cthulhu Con, and it was part of the reason that we were like, we gotta make like a Lovecraftian short film, just like knowing that you guys existed. And so I'm actually like pretty sad that I haven't been able to make it in person to anything, because like I'm like heartbroken about it, because I was like, we sort of made it for this festival in a way. And it's also interesting because with all of that in mind, our DP coming with the 16 millimeter and then finding out about this festival and stuff, it ended up being something that I feel like is like the most like pure me thing that I did for me, that like feels like it wasn't like to please anyone else. It was like to tickle myself. And so I'm really proud of it in that way. And then you can find our other short that at least is the one that's available online at darklingfilms.com, which is our website. Anything, you got anything?
No, that's good. You did great.
Yeah. You see this handsome man's face after you watch the short blocks, and except for that he's got a mustache in it. So.
Yeah, you see you see my silent acting chops in this short, but if you want to see Tasha in a different kind of horror, not cosmic, but she's won a lot of acting awards for the horrific portrayal of a crazy woman, to say the least. So yeah, please check out our other work.
Awesome. Again, thank you guys so much for A, making a film and submitting it to us, and B, taking time to do this Q&A with me and give our audience a little more insight, and me a little more insight. I love doing these because it allows us to talk with people who are in Denmark and Ireland and Spain and can't, or Mexico, and can't be here with us at the festival for us to ask you questions on the stage. But the streaming is great for that because we get to talk to everyone in all corners of the world. So thank you again for for being here and being cultists now. You're in our family. You're in the festival family. So we hope you keep in touch. And to the audience, please check out their other films and support independent film. Go enjoy the rest of all the short film blocks and features, and check out the Q&As and extra content in the live stream tab. Thank you so much. We'll see you guys later. Bye.
Bye.